Hello. Yes, yes. Professor
Hi,
Khan,
hi.
how are you? We meet again.
Good, good, all good.
So nice to
Yeah,
see you.
yeah, same here. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So we'll just give it a minute. I think people are joining in. We've got a reasonable number of registrations for the session today. So we'll just give it a minute and start dot at 5.
Is it mostly students or it's a mix of?
I think that we've got a healthy mix. We've got professionals, we've got academicians, we've got students, but that's the registration. That's what the registration show. We'll do a quick poll and check on who all are attending today, so that just in case we need to course correct the script that's been given, we will do that just to for everybody to derive maximum value from the session today.
So I discussed the structure briefly with Parinay in the morning.
Right, she did inform
And
me. Yeah.
yeah, so I'll do a kind of a conceptual discussion in the beginning, and then of course you'll ask what we can discuss about Sushant, and then the forward,
Right.
yeah, forward plan or whatever. So
Sure.
yeah, so 3 parts. And
Yeah, we I think it's pretty much according to the tracks that were built, and we will take it. We'll pick it up as per whatever you want to kind of build upon from the main track content that is being put through. No problems. Okay, I think we'll get started. People will keep joining in as they typically do, but in the interest of time, I really do like to start and finish on dot. So we'll keep it going. So everybody who's here with us till now, very warm welcome to each one of you. Really honored and privileged to be hosting this session here today. And as you all are aware, this is about how emerging technologies are creating a paradigm shift in the architectural learning and pedagogy, the teaching around with the use of technology. Specifically given in the face of the pandemic. However, I do feel that it's a topic that while it got accelerated due to the pandemic situation that the world faced, but as an industry we really did, and it's my personal opinion, and we'll see how it goes during the course of the next 90 minutes. But as an industry, we really needed to improve the tech adoption in terms of how we deliver our designs and the projects that we are all involved in. So again, once again, very warm welcome. I'll quickly introduce the panelists that we have today. Professor Habib Khan, President of Council of Architecture, as we all know. Mr. Khan graduated in architecture from VNIT, formerly known as VRCE, and did his master's from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. After he finished his master's degree, he continued to work in Philadelphia, coordinating major retail design projects for retail giants across the world. Upon his return to India in 1990, he started his own private practice by the name of Smita and Habib Khan Architects and deal with campus and institutional design and resort projects. He has worked with major hospitality groups like Taj, Citrus, Mahua, and Celebrations, amongst a few other and a lot of other campuses across central India. Our second panelist today is Dr. Vibhuti Sachdev, Dean of Sushant School of Architecture, Director, Architecture Planning and Design School at Sushant University. She qualified as an architect in 1989 from School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi and completed her doctorate in 1996 from University of London. Has worked on as a conservation consultant, as a writer and a designer. She has taught at the University of Sussex and written 4 books as well. At Sushant University, Dr. Vibhuti has introduced new programs, various reforms and innovations in teaching and learning systems in the field of architecture, planning, design, and undergraduate and postgraduate studies. Third panelist today, Bijoy Ramachandran, an architect and urban designer based out of Bangalore, and he's currently a partner at 100 Hands. In 2012, he was a part of the Glenn Murcutt Masterclass in Sydney. He has also been a panelist twice at Annual India Undergraduate Thesis Review, the Kurula Workey Design Forum at Center of Environmental Planning and Technology. and is currently the design chair at BMS College of Architecture, Bangalore. He has also, amazingly so, made 3 films. So we've got a esteemed panel today. Really excited to be here. Quick introduction. I am Gautam. I'm the founder of SmartWiz. I have also, along with the co-founder Titi, created Trezi, India's first virtual reality software for architecture, engineering, and construction industry. And I'm an architect myself, and did my master's in construction management from University of New South Wales. With 20 years of hardcore corporate workplace experience that I gathered after my master's, I'm just trying to solve some of the problems that we faced as working professionals in the design and build industry. So we are good to start. We're good to go. Once again, a big welcome to everybody who has joined in after we got started. A quick start point to the discussion today. We'll start with a poll. We just want to understand what is the mix of the people here today. While we do have a written agenda and a script that we are following, but in case there is a mix that needs, we do intend to keep this meaningful and purpose driven. So in case we need to course correct a bit, we are more than happy to do so. I'm taking the liberty on speaking on behalf of all the other panelists as well. But if Dishank, we can run the poll quickly and see the mix that we have today. Could you just, all of you, let us know what what exactly are you as a professional, student, faculty, product manufacturers, because these are the folks who are in the Trezi ecosystem already. So if you could let us know, we would be able to figure out how we want to keep this going. Do we have the poll results, Dishank?
Yes, we do. We are on the verge of 1 minute. So I'll share the result in a minute.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we've got 58% working professionals, and the next biggest lot that we have is faculty. It's kind of surprised to see students at 11%, but I'm sure they'll keep joining in, ma'am. I had told all the students of Ishan to join today, so let's see how many join in. So okay, thanks. We'll keep going. I see people are still joining in. That's all right, but we need to keep going, guys. So we will move to the first track for the discussion today. And I'll just take all the panelists' views on emerging technologies, because I have interacted with each one of them in various shapes and forms, in various capacities as well, and have had a discussion on virtual and augmented realities and other emerging technologies as well. And I'd like to first take this to Dr. Vibhuti. Dr. Vibhuti, I mean, you have been a pioneer in many ways in terms of introducing newer and present day perspectives to students of architecture, both in terms of design processes, technology. In fact, one of the initiatives that I still recall that got started is it was a basic thought behind for us to create Trezi Academy. So if I can just start with you and take your thoughts on emerging technology, immersive technologies in particular. The students themselves have been pioneers in using the technology, I recall, and at a time when most of the colleges, most of the students in India were not even aware as to how they could use a platform of this nature to their advantage, to be able to experience designs in a manner that they have not been able to, and communicate that with the faculty members as well. And I still remember the first person who did that. It was a big success. The external jurors were in it, you were in it, and we then started, in fact, talking about how do we take this mainstream. So could you just talk us through your views on emerging technologies, what really happened, and where are you with that right now at Sushant?
Okay, thank you, Gautam. Yes, it's it has been a very good partnership, but also we are still at a nascent stage of exploring the full potential of what we have in hand and what is emerging very rapidly. If I may, I will kind of set the set the tone in a conceptual manner, to see, to just reflect on what is it we are talking about. We're talking about the creative fields, we're talking about design, we're talking about architecture, which is to do with the imagination, which is to do with the mind so much. And so we have to understand, the mind, of course, at a deeper level, but how we perceive things, what is the process of perception and how we see. And of course, the perception is not just visual. We have these 5 informants to the mind, and this is a kind of a very, very well-known thread in Indian philosophy, that the mind is informed by the 5 senses, and then you start the perception process, and then you consciously place your mind on something, and that is what the process of creative imagination is. And also bear in mind that nothing that we imagine or dream is disconnected from reality. Everything in our dreams is connected to reality. There's nothing kind of outwardly that we've ever dreamt of that is not real. It may be exaggerated, it may be amplified, it may be subverted, it may be, we may be dreaming in black and white or color, but nevertheless, there are connections with the reality. What we've also seen these days, that there is a confusion between virtual and unreal. We seem to use these two terms, in a very confused way, and not in a very kind of not with clarity. So of course, all perception is created by the mind. Now, the effort is, when we represent an idea, the effort is, how to connect minds through external manifestation. So, which is the representation of the idea. So you make a model, you make a drawing, you express what is in your mind through this external manifestation. And because each mind is different and unique, and the process involving not just the 5 senses, the memory and your own history and your environment and how you've nurtured, and all of that means that each perception is unique. Now what representation does is it tries to create a common platform where which is a connected shared system, the values of which are in a way agreed among each other. So you have vocabulary, you have language, which is a shared system of communication. So we all agree that A looks like, in a particular way, and that there's grammar, that there's, so, so when you speak in a certain way, then you perceive, and then you have a shared knowledge system, or your shared system of representation. And it is important to have that as society, because of course in the creative fields, because you're also designing for others, you're not designing for your own self. So you have to have a work within this shared system where all stakeholders can participate equally. And so what it is interesting then to ponder on what is real and what is not real. Bear in mind, our old school representation of reality that we have been using since Bauhaus, which is the poster behind your window, is in the form of plan sections elevations. This is the most unreal way of representing buildings. Nobody uses it in plan section elevation. You don't experience them in plan section elevation. It is, it is like dissecting something biological, which you then, you dissect it and you understand it, you put it together. And so the system we are using, which we have agreed to use as a shared vocabulary of plan section elevation, is as artificial as anything else. It is not, something that has to be done in that way. In fact, it is very, very much removed from how actually buildings are experienced or designed. And in the most sophisticated civilizations in the world, people do not communicate through plan section elevation. There is a codified system of design, which of course India also has. And, so therefore we don't have historical drawings of buildings. It's a codified system of negotiating design. And so, when you have a certain vocabulary, you can imagine, building form, and the craftsman knows that, and, the contractor knows that, everybody knows that vocabulary. So, and I'm not going to go into the history of drawings because that's another, seminar topic. Drawings were introduced by the British as a contractual agreement between who is going to execute and who's going to design, so that, they can check whether this, the actual building complies with what was agreed. And these were two sides who were not really speaking to each other, or didn't even know each other's language. So it's pretty dated. I mean, it's still in use, but it's very dated. So that's the representation of architecture, the traditional, if I may call it that, which is, not very old, but still in use, way of communicating design in terms of drawings. The other thing that we need to kind of just reflect on a little bit, that what virtual technology also facilitates is remote learning. Or one could say that, virtual is remote, therefore not real. And there is this, argument between what is remote and what is intimate or close. But again, you have to, think that, remote learning starts from the first row of the class. You're already remote. It's probably the backbenchers who are learning differently. And more interestingly, because they've got this peripheral vision and not focusing on the blackboard. But for, I would also, go on to say that in fact, remote learning starts from the first seeing of an object, from the first registering through the senses. You're already remote. So how remote you want to be is I mean, this is a provocation, but and you're already remote from reality. So there's not a question of whether you are remote or not. And in a way, I think what modern technologies do, modern technology offers us opportunity for engaging with very, very valuable scenarios. Number one, it presents us scenarios which are so far the closest to reality in a way that transaction elevation isn't. So when you're immersed in a space, when you're doing the walkthroughs with your client, with the students, and you're in it, and you try and experience it as if you were in it. And architecture in particular is a spatial creative process. It's not an object. So you have to inhabit it in order to experience it. And how do you experience that? Is what modern technologies are beginning to offer us, and this is fantastically valuable. Also, what it offers you to do, because it does this, experiential thing, that it gives us a chance to optimize resources. So you can actually feel, and you can actually, say, okay, I don't actually need this, or we don't need, such a thick thing. We could do with less material. We could do with more windows, or we could optimize. Of course, parametric does that very efficiently. The third thing that modern technologies also do is, it offers a common platform for participation of all stakeholders. In a way, it democratizes the design process, so that, this immersive walkthroughs that you are doing as a designer is also, partaken by your clients. So, you can't any longer say that, you don't have to give a perspective in order to understand the design. You already have this thing which you walk through together, and then, it kind of universalizes the language. And I know there are pitfalls to that, but it is of, I think, great importance. The fifth point, and I have 6 points, so it's coming to an end. The fifth point is that, also this debate about what is artificial and what is natural. Artificial intelligence, for example. Is it artificial? And I would and say that nothing is natural. Everything is created by the mind. So in a way, everything is artificial. And I would quote John Searle, who's worked a lot on Turing, the artificial intelligence. His hypothesis of how he defines artificial intelligence is the appropriately programmed computer with the right inputs and outputs would thereby have a mind in exactly the same sense human beings have minds. So in a way, we are replicating our mind because it's mimicking how our mind works. And of course, it's not, we'll be ahead of the game. Of course, we have to, this is a computer which is trying to replicate your mind. And the inputs we are giving are us, it's not creating its own input. So the last point is, so what is this beast we have created? It's a genie, right, from the Aladdin lamp. So we have to keep telling it what to do. Otherwise, it'll go on a rampage and start destroying things because it has huge potential. But in the end, we have to tame it. It's we have created technology, and it's going to grow, and it's going to empower itself because that's what we wanted to do. So it will actually make us more aware, more self-aware. It will actually make us more mindful of what we are doing because we can now track things very, very acutely. And but most of all, we have to treat it for what it is. We have to treat it like we can't be enslaved by it. We have to tame it, and we have it is our tool. So those are my initial thoughts on
So thanks so much for kickstarting this, ma'am. And I mean, I've got more questions for you, and they will probably pick up on what you have mentioned in the first segment itself. And because again, I have worked with the students so closely, a lot of them, and their perspectives, and probably some of their queries around how this can expand and become far more meaningful as a I won't call it a tool, but a platform, a bridge that is going to make the faculty members and the students understand each other better. Not just as a just a necessary output that is required as a submission during the during this course of a semester, but more as a meaningful platform that is going to help them understand their designs better and be able to also communicate them. But that is for later. We'll come to that in the second segment. There's a lot to talk about still, but I'll bring in Bijoy here. Bijoy, your practice has had a huge impact on the current Indian architectural ethos, and that includes me. Look up to the work that 100 Hands does. The critical focus on scale, character, spatial and visual impact, something that you have mentioned a lot during some of the conversations that we've had as well. So, I mean, I still remember the first day I met you, and for the Trezi demo, I was not sure. I was very nervous whether how's this going to go because you know tech interventions are not always taken very kindly by the fraternity. And I remember Harish bringing me to your office. I was like, are you sure? Do you think this will belong in Bijoy's office? But this was a meeting, and I'm sharing it with everybody who's here today, the shortest demo I ever did, because Bijoy wore the headset and he said, wow, let's do this. I mean, we should when can we get started? So you've been one of the biggest users of Prezi. Your office continues to be one of the biggest champions. I get calls at 11 a.m. I've got a meeting at 1. Something's not working. Please help us, support us. But let's look at it in a bit more serious manner here. I'm saying that what I want to ask you is, what was it about the immersive medium that really worked for you? I mean, you were one of the first people to use it and use it well, gave me feedback, helped us improve the product, and we continue to get that from you. And what sort of changes did you need to bring about in your workflow to introduce a technology of this nature? Uh, how did your team respond to this, and how are your clients responding to a technology of this? It's different, right? It's no more about drawings. It's no more about, I mean, of course, physical models still belong, drawings still go in, but step one is making them walk the design that you're proposing. So few questions here. I'll go one by one. So what was it about the immersive medium that brought you to it so easily? I think you're on mute, Bijoy. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks Gautam and Titi and all of Trezi to invite me and also to be part of such an illustrious group. So Great to be with Dr. Vibhuti and Sir. Um, yeah, so I mean, I think Dr. Vibhuti has covered an incredible spectrum of, what, of course, to start with representation, how do we communicate, what do we sort of tell others so that we have a shared way of experiencing the same thing. I think that's a fantastic point. And so to answer your question, to get into this virtual world, we make a lot of models in the office. We make a lot of drawings. Again, the whole plan section elevation sort of drawings. And we've always had a big sort of stumbling block when we try to communicate this to clients, many of whom can't read drawings, and even the models don't help. And so the moment I put on the headset and sort of inhabited a model that we'd taken from our SketchUp, I mean, it was just directly taken into your software, and it immediately brought to light the immediacy with which a client could access what we were trying to do. Of course, it throws a curveball our way as well, in that we have to now learn how to collaborate really with a client, because obfuscation usually sometimes helps us as well. That if they don't understand it, maybe they won't notice what we're doing, and we can make our way through it. But this reveals everything. And so even our ability to collaborate, to really listen, and for them to bring meaning to the work, now they're inhabiting the space, they see the space for what it is, and now they're reading into it with all of those baggages that Dr. Vibhuti suggested, that all of their memories, they, everything sort of starts, it kindles all of that from them. And so we're really now collaborating. It's a real sort of engagement with the client, which initially I thought it would be just representational and we would just show it to them and they'd be happy with it. But now they come back with really specific requirements and specific conditions for how they want the space to be. So I think to answer your question, the idea that it would bring to bear to the client exactly what you're doing was the greatest or most obvious sort of benefit that we saw in this kind of virtual, environment.
So part two, continuing with the same on the topic, Bijoy. So yes, you did mention that the involvement from the client saw a change, a drastic improvement, if I may call it that. I think the inputs may have been more qualitative, better than typically whimsical, and some inputs just do not work. We are just trying to convince most of our clients that listen, what you're saying is not going to work. But now you were able to show it to them. I think you were able to show it, and that listen, what you're saying is not working. I'll make you experience that. But were there any big changes that were required to be done in the way the studio functioned, in terms of model making, modeling practices? There's a perception. The reason why I ask this question is one of the reasons why we do not pick a new technology, a new product in the market is that one is the general fear factor that, okay, how much time is this going to take? And I'm going to train somebody and he or she is going to go away, and some typical things that run in our profession. But also the thing is around the fact that my workflow is going to get elongated, it's going to get stretched, and the time that I need to spend, qualitative time that I need to spend developing a design is going to get reduced. So
Right.
did you face any of those challenges at all?
Not at all. No. In fact, that was one of the most interesting things about it, that we could just plug in a SketchUp model into the software and then inhabit it. And so what we were normally doing, of course, we are not cutting edge technology sort of practice. We're still working pretty much in sort of rudimentary drawing and model making sort of way. But we do make a lot of SketchUp. We used to, and so having that sort of augmented this way was a great benefit. And so it wasn't really a huge change in the way we work. We continue to make drawings, we continue to make models, but we also now have this added component that we ourselves want to look at things 1:1 inhabiting, because the model also is limiting. We do make larger models, etc. But this just takes it to a whole other level in terms of how we can experience it. And we're making the SketchUp models anyway. So then it isn't really a big shift for us. We haven't, to just extend the discussion a little bit, we haven't really taken full advantage of what this environment allows us. So in fact, we're still using it merely for representational work. So we're just basically doing the design through these traditional modes of practice and bringing the model in here just to have the experience of being in the space. And we haven't yet crossed that threshold where we're actually actively making changes while we inhabit the building. So that's probably a few steps away for us, but right now it's working great as a representational tool.
Thanks, Bijoy. And this is where I'll move on and move to Habib sir. Habib sir, so I would love to get the Council of Architecture's view on emerging technologies. So uh, as a student of architecture in the 90s, I remember that was the last big paradigm shift. When I was finishing my architectural education, 1996, 97, AutoCAD had just kind of started to make its presence felt, and during my first year in the profession itself, we saw that the council mandated introduction of computer-aided design in the curriculum of architecture at that point in time. And many professionals believe, and we've heard, some views from Bijoy already. Many professionals believe that we are on the cusp of the next paradigm shift. Uh, and Dr. Vibhuti also mentioned that how Sushant University has kind of taken leadership in terms of introducing emerging technologies as a part of their curriculum. So how does the COA view this? Are there any thoughts emerging that students, the future professionals, should start, catering to these new demands early? And is the council taking a view of this and maybe bringing this, necessitating the implementation in the profession in the near future?
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. I think after listening to Vibhuti, I thought, everything has been covered so comprehensively that, no one else needs to probably, say anything else. But from the council's point of view, there was a paradigm shift, like you're talking of in the 90s. But same way, we have to understand one thing. We have to understand the kind of framework and the regulatory authority that the council is. Any regulatory authority or a statutory body prescribes the minimum standards. That this is the minimum threshold that you need to take and you need to keep and maintain for a certain quality of education. But no one stops anyone from going ahead and doing, the maximum, whatever your limit is. The problem with our institutions and education system is that we are still struggling to meet with the minimum standards. And either the minimum standards are not appropriate, or the quality of education has really gone down. So this is a dilemma that we all face at the council as well. But council is at the moment very open and very transparent as far as embracing new technologies, newer trends, newer paradigm shifts in the entire thing. And with the new education policy coming in, I'm sure this aspect is being addressed in the new regulations that we have just had it approved up to 38 years or something. Is also a very flexible system wherein you can have lots of electives and you can have a lot of institutional projects and lateral entries as far as curriculum is concerned, as far as your pedagogy is concerned. So I don't see anywhere any issue where there will be a restriction from the council or by the regulations wherein you cannot imbibe these in your pedagogical methods or in your teaching methodologies. So the field is open, and I think the academicians and the professionals actually demand an academician should provide, but it is up to them to come forward and say, okay, this is the way forward and this is what is to be done. And there is a framework which is already there. So we actually support. I mean, my role is a little delicate here as a practicing architect, academician as well, and the president of the council. But I'm talking from the point of view of the president of the council, that we are open to suggestions and we have the necessary framework in which we can fit everything, and there are no restrictions or no boundaries.
Sure, thanks. I think that clarifies the point for the academicians that are attending the session today. And we get into these discussions a fair bit. I mean, I'm meeting practically 3 to 4 universities a week these days, and we keep getting into this discussion that will this ever be mandated by the council, Habib sir? I mean, these are the kind of discussion that we get into, and I'm glad to hear what you've just said, because there is absolutely no stopping from the council. This is what I hear, that if they're
Absolutely. See, let us be very frank. Let's call spade a spade. Introducing newer technologies, newer methods, and newer learning, whatever whatever you want to call those environments or whatever. It needs substantial amount of investment. It needs substantial amount of expertise. It needs certain amount of dedication from the institution or university level. And to be honest, most of them are not willing to do that, and are unable to do that, or are not capable of doing that because of various reasons. Maybe financial is one, but availability of expertise, availability of resource persons is also another. So it's a catch-20 situation wherein you want to do it, but you can't do it because of various reasons. So these are, I think, excuses kind of thing, wherein you say whether it is mandated by the council. You see the mandate of the council, you see the regulations, and it is very clearly written there. What can be done and what cannot be done. I mean, what has to be done is written there. What you can do is your imagination and your limit. So it's basically an excuse that people come up with of not doing things, I think. I mean, I may be probably being a little harsh, but it's time that we call spade a spade.
Yeah, on that note, we've got the first view that's been presented by Jay. I hope, Jay, I'm not putting you into trouble. I'm sure I'm not. But Jay says that VR should have been introduced by now in the curriculum. Engineers are still being taught CAD in their syllabus. Our education system really needs to
do it. Who's stopping you from doing? Not
so Jay, we do not. I think it's a student, sir. So I think Jay is calling out to his faculty college. Jay has not said anything more than that, which college he belongs to, and I'm sure he doesn't want to either. So it's all right, Jay. We know who all have attended. We'll take this to your college if you're a student. But you pick up a valid point, and I think Habib sir has mentioned that already. It's the council does not put a stop to it, so it's the college which has to mandate. And I think you picked up a very important point, Habib sir. I think it's not the lack of will. I think it's the lack of expertise. It's and by will I'm including the monetary aspect of the will as well. But the thing is, how many experts really exist today to be able to build up a meaningful sort of a course? You know, it's taken a while for me and Dr. Vibhuti to kind of come up with a curriculum with a lot of guidance from her. You know, and I think we'll be able to kind of demonstrate in the next few months how valuable it would have been for students. And Jay, some of your points would have kind of been addressed there. But it's the lack of expertise.
This brings me, I'm sorry. This brings me to a dilemma which I would want to share with you all. And that dilemma, I've been thinking about it, and I have no answers to that. See, when you compare, when you see medical profession as per se, where they have very advanced technology, AI, and so many other things which they're using for the betterment of their skills and the information that is available to them. You have very high level of technical intervention in the medical field. But how many times you are shown what is inside your liver or inside your heart or whatever, and what is the threshold of restriction that an architect should have? I feel that the technology and the artificial intelligence has to be used by a professional to enhance his own skills and to get to know about it, like Bijoy was talking of, experiencing space, 1:1 detail, experiencing it yourself, walking down it, all that is fine for a professional. But how much should that be known to a client, or how much the client should be involved in the process of this is a question which is, is a dilemma that I face as a practicing architect. And how much should a client know?
And that's a topic for that's a separate topic, sir, for a discussion, because I have not been able to solve that in the last 18-20 months of my Trezi journey, because I've been, a lot of times this question has been thrown at me as to how much should a client be allowed to change the design. I think not at all, but I think clients' feedback, clients' inputs are valid, and ultimately they are the ones who commissioned us for the project. And my argument to this point is that they should know, it should be an informed decision, collective decision. But should a client be allowed to make a change? Absolutely not. I don't think so.
Anyway,
but then that's another topic, and we have to move on. We're not doing too well on time, so I'll just probably rush this segment. But time for a second poll, and this is for all of you here. The question is, have you experienced immersive technology from a design visualization and design communication perspective yet? If you can just quickly get your views on that, guys, that'll be helpful, because our track 2 is about the post-pandemic world, the near post-pandemic world. I don't think we are in the post-pandemic world yet, but there's some important discussion points that we are getting into now. Dishank, just let us know whenever you have the results.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this is gone along the expected lines. Experienced it once or twice is the maximum, but yeah, 30% have are using it in their office or school. Wow, that's a large number. I was expecting the lowest there, but okay, not surprised on the no never side of things. Okay, so this is what is going to help this segment. This track is actually going to help us talk about some of the things for those folks who have just experienced it once or twice or not at all. And I'll start with Bijoy on this one. Bijoy, continuing from the previous section on paradigm shifts again. So the pandemic has turned our practices on their head. I mean, it's a given. We all understand that. And even those who have not viewed technology-based interventions favorably were left with no choice at all but to adopt newer methods. So were you at 100 hands forced to adopt anything spectacularly different during and the post the lockdown? And are there any learnings that you can share with the younger generation? And your perspective on the industry as a whole. How is our industry today in February 2021 different to what it was in March 2020?
Well, I don't have a technological answer to your question.
And we're not looking for a technology-based answer. We're just looking for as an industry thought leader. Yeah.
The fundamental change, at least for us in the office, the thing that really sort of came to light for us is how unaware we are about the large number of people who work on our sites, the kind of conditions in which they're working, the terms and conditions that, you know, their labor laws or whatever. And so we started looking at those documents carefully for those projects that hadn't been awarded yet. So we're working with the Indian Institute of Science on a project, and we started doing that, which we'd never done before. So rather than just concentrating on design and just, you know, making drawings, we started getting involved in, which I would say that all architects should get involved in. We haven't been doing that really. So that was a kind of segue into an area that we really didn't have any knowledge about. We started getting in touch with lawyer friends, trying to see what the Karnataka state, labor laws stipulate, finding very, very strange conditions that were, you know, from, I don't know, from the 1850s or something, still being sort of, you know, 15 years was the minimum age for work on site, which I found to be in the documents that we had, on site. So things like that, which, you know, and then of course, a lot of discrepancy with regards to the payment made to women workers on site versus payment made to, you know, the men on site. And this is all written down as legislation. I mean, it's just shocking to know that, you know, so that was the sort of first thing that, and we haven't had made much headway, but we've sort of helped draft, slightly different renewed, regulations for our contractors on site for the Indian Institute of Science project. There was a second question as well, right? That you'd asked, Gautam?
Sorry, I was on mute. I didn't realize. Yeah. So the one was, of course, what you did spectacularly different, which is what you just answered, Bijoy. But are there any learnings for the younger generation here? I mean, of course, you kind of got together. You looked at a few things that you had not looked at all prior to the situation that we were forced into. But what about the younger lot? You know, something that they can, some learnings that that have come your way, which you may want to share with them, that they, you know, the younger lot joining the profession now should certainly be looking at before they come into the profession?
Well, I don't know whether the pandemic has made any sort of dramatic shift in that regard, unfortunately or fortunately.
Fortunately, I would say.
It's just, I think I mean, again, not directly connected to the profession per se or to this discussion, but I think just the amount of time that we have, and all of the other things that you could do with your time. So, we've practically stopped meeting our clients face to face. Everything happens online now, including our younger staff, etc. We, don't do, and that opens up a lot of time for us to do other things, concentrate on our work at the office. But with regards to the younger folks, I don't really know whether there's any sort of dramatic shift in the way that this pandemic has brought to light certain conditions, other than the fact that working remotely, etc., and how to be more productive in that environment. And I don't have a specific sort of idea as a response. Yeah.
Sure, and I think we'll come to Dr. Vibhuti after I bring Habib sir in, because I'm sure there's a lot of change that the education segment saw, right? I mean, they had to change overnight. But Habib sir first. Habib sir, from a council's perspective, do you see any new trends that the council needs to respond to post-pandemic? And are there going to be any stipulations, requirements from professionals and practices that, hey, listen, post-pandemic, your practice must be geared up for this and must deliver projects in this particular manner, or is it business as usual still? You're on mute, sir, sorry.
I don't know if pandemic played a role in that or will play a role in that, but I think it is time for professionals to understand that there's a huge shift in the kind of quality of work that they've been providing and the quality of service that they've been providing in the entire thought process that goes into an architectural practice, pandemic or no pandemic. But pandemic has definitely made us think, like Bijoy was just saying, that you have a lot of time, you have so many lateral things to do, and the necessity of a elaborate office or a workplace wherein all converge and then put their heads together. Do we need all that? Do we need institutions as large as we have these days? Do we need face-to-face learning? Do we need so many other things which we used to do pre-pandemic? Now, post-pandemic, we need to introspect and find out whether we are able to work out or evolve a new way of working, new way of thinking, and new way of collaborating. And I think that's something that we all need to do, and we at the council are doing it. During the pandemic, we also realized the limitations, we also realized the pitfalls, and we came up with advisories, we came up with very flexible systems of evaluation, conducting examinations and teaching and learning. We did that. We issued a couple of advisories wherein guidelines were issued to the institutions. But as far as practice is concerned, professionals are concerned, I think we need to think from the point of view of what the market forces will govern henceforth. What will be the remuneration coming in? What will be the economics involved in the whole thing? What would be the nature of practice that the clients demand and deserve? Like, in my office as well, I have not met my clients since last almost 9 months. And yet the works are going on, the project is going on. I've not gone to a site also in the last 7 months during the lockdown. And of course, the sites were not working, but when it started, there were travel restrictions. But the work is going on pretty efficiently. So it questions, the more model that we were following, whether it was right or wrong. And these are things I think in the next couple of years, probably we'll be able to find a new path or a new way. But as far as council is concerned, see, council is a regulatory authority which regulates profession as well as education. But it doesn't mean, it's a railway track or a railway line on which you need to walk and you cannot, the wheels cannot go here and there. We just provide a roadmap, that's it. And we ensure that in right earnest, things are happening, and basically, the council is not for the architects. That's the main issue that we all need to understand. Any act that is made by the government is for the protection of the common people, and we architects hold on to it and saying it is our act. It is not your act. It's the act of the common people to protect the common people from fraudulent practices of professionals, architects or otherwise, and for institutions to give a particular amount of particular quality of education to common people who are coming to your institution. So basically, it's a broad framework and guideline.
Right, sir. I mean, I've learned something new, and I've got something to build an argument on. I've really learned something new. So thanks so much for that. And I'm sure not just me, lot of other folks would have really taken some learning from what you just shared with us. So thanks so much for that. I'll bring in Dr. Vibhuti here. Dr. Vibhuti, so educational segment was probably most significantly impacted, right? And we were speaking about that, you, me, and Bijoy before the session started. I mean, almost overnight, you had to respond, you had to think on your feet, you had to probably put together a lot of suboptimal options before the optimal emerged. So my question is, how did Sushant University in particular respond? How did Sushant School of Art and Architecture respond? And from an architecture education-based perspective, were there any myths that got debunked during this time? That there were like Bijoy mentioned, and even Professor Habib mentioned, right? That they realized that there were far many efficient methods that existed for us to continue with our work. It was physical co-location and meetings every day were not really necessary. Work still continued. But what about architectural education, and what changes came about that you think are now here to stay?
Firstly, let's just debunk the myth that things happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. Everything is a culmination of hundreds of years. It's not, nothing just suddenly changes. And this technology has been brewing for a long time. And it's probably the pandemic was, brewing for a long time, and it just came to a head when it did. But when we were asked to do this switch, we were at a fork road. So we were told, do you want to take this challenge on? Do we close the school for some time? And I decided no, we're going to keep going, because many of the things that we were doing were in alignment with what the opportunity would offer, and the whole thing got speeded up. In fact, it was a fantastic opportunity for us to speed up those processes, and say, look, this is online. We need, this support. We need that support. We have to keep going. So many things which would have taken, say, a year or two to happened in 3 months, because of the focus and the support that was given to online teaching, learning, and so on. And the other thing that has been happening, over the last hundreds of years is the changing role of the teacher. The teacher, started with, lecturing, was kind of an information disseminator, was overtaken by Google, who's, far better at disseminating information than any of us can. And so the evolving role of a teacher changing, and this is a cliche you must have heard before, changing from being a sage on the stage to the guide on the side, was meant to happen. And, also it has happened because the technological gap between the teacher and the student is now skewed, because the students are far ahead in technology than some of us are. I've grown up and learned, I'm of that generation who really enjoyed the pressure of the 4H on the cartridge, and how it glistens when you draw, section, and those fine drawings used to make. That was a staple diet. But students now get a thrill by something else. A virtual line gives them a similar thrill, which and I think now what has happened is, and NEP, as Professor Khan's also mentioned, also reflects this change that, now the teaching or learning is collaborative between the teacher and the student. It's not I will throw the pearls of wisdoms which you will gather mode. It's, let's learn together. Let's explore this together. Let's pull in all our resources, no matter what age, what background, together on the table. And because I am older than all of you guys, so I choose myself to be your guide. That's the contract. But, I'm also learning with you, because some of the things that you can do, I haven't learned at your age. So, so the environment, the mood in the classroom, the studio is of collaboration. It's no longer, receiving, giving sort of, unidirectional mode of information. And I think that is very exciting. It democratizes teaching, it democratizes how design works, and that is something that the students will take on and practice, so they will treat the client as a team player. So it's not, so the client and the architect will also collaborate. They are collaborators and not, service providers. And of course, there is, of course, there has to be that element of a service as a profession, of course, but, that has to be actually highlighted that, we architects are here to do a seva. It's a seva, it's a seva to the society. It's a service in that way, but it's a collaborative effort that both teachers and students have. And I think what we also did was, which we had planned before the pandemic, was this module called Para Design, which was clubbed with the design studio, where we were already exploring parametric design. We were doing immersive technology, and also what you mentioned, that we started using those headsets, and which was so thrilling, I must say. Sort of, and the students very proud. I know, that thrill will wear off because it's a new toy that we have, and you like playing it, and then it becomes old. But the facility it provides us, again, I would say, to democratize design, to optimize design, to make it more accessible, to make it more, open to criticism, is of great value. And I think, what this might also do is increase the accountability of the designer. So, the mistakes or the things that we wish the client would not see will be, there to for everybody to see and comment, probably. And then, then probably, the equation between the designer and the client would change. And also, I think I would also say it is still our product. It's what we have created. It's not something that has, fallen into our laps from the heaven, and we've been asked to kind of do it or, quit. It is for us to make of it what we want to make of it. And I think in a country like India, where there's so much diversity, there's economic diversity as well. I think there will be many streams of design production that will continue to happen, and they must. That is what makes us a great civilization, that you see the oldest of processes, coexisting with the latest ones. Isn't that exciting? I think very few countries in the world have that, that you can have a Varanasi, and you can have, a high-tech city, and you can have, so, we must save those things and not kind of say, you must only do this or you must only do that. And I think that's what Professor Khan was saying, that, the council makes all these options available to us. It's not kind of saying, there is only one route. There are several you can follow within certain minimum guidelines. So I think it's a very exciting opportunity for all of us, and especially for architecture. The technology that the avenue that opens up for architecture, because it's a spatial design, because you have to design, you have to immerse in it, inhabit it before you commit and build it. And we already have too many buildings we shouldn't have built. So, we better be pretty sure we want to build it. So this is another way to make sure that, yes, we want to build it, and we want to consume so much material and so much money to build it. And so this will become an important checkpoint. I think this is to say, do you really want to build this? Because, our immersive spatial tour is showing that it's pretty ugly. Do you want to still do it? So, this checkpoint is important. You can no longer.
But sorry, in the interest of time, I'll have to jump in. But again, the question that the answer that I'm still looking for is, are we ready for a pedagogical shift? I mean, are we in that space now, which we should have actually been in a pandemic or not? I mean, are we more aware and embracing towards a shift in terms of embracing technology? And have the last 12 months prepared us for that?
I think we are more than ready now, because pandemic has prepared us much more. We would have been reluctant to work from home online. People have had steep learning curves because of the demands of the situation. And also this kind of fear of technology has reduced. I think this hawa behind this virtual thing. Now people know what it is like, and everybody is sort of used to it. So yeah, I think lots of those myths have been busted, or it's just become more accessible also.
Yeah, I think there are 2 or 3 things working there, but we'll keep it for another day. And there are a lot of other topics that, I mean, not a lot of other, we have a track to finish, which is another 15 minutes to go, but we'll move to the next one. But before we move to the next one, we've got the third poll coming up, guys, and for the audience here, and we've got some reactions also coming in the chat, but I'll read those reactions while we do the poll, because we'll utilize those 2 minutes reading the reaction. But the poll, if we can put that up, Dishank, is that what new tools have you adopted to respond to the challenges faced due to the pandemic? Online meeting platforms, immersive technology for collaborating, or did you feel that there was absolutely no need to change despite the pandemic? And I've had a few interactions on that too. But while you guys respond to that, I'll take up some of the reactions that we have got during this track. We've got Professor Basavra talking to us. Good evening, sir. He says that the client is concerned with presentation and correct perception through virtual reality, and does not need to know the nitty-gritty. And he also says that Bijoy is also from the young generation. I agree, sir. I completely agree. So I should have kind of articulated that question better. Rajiv says, Habib sir is right. Pandemic has shown us that there can be better and efficient ways for work. Absolutely. Professor Basavra, something really new from president, but then why is it called called as Architects Act, sir? You may want to take that.
because it concerns architecture. you can't call it a medical act or a lawyer's act or whatever. Basically, it concerns architecture. That's why it's the Architects Act.
Rajiv also says that Vibhuti ma'am started her views with a solid quote. Nothing happens overnight. We all agree. Yeah, 10,000 hours philosophy. I believe in that. Amit Pathak, hi Amit. How would you envision to make this platform more reachable to masses, especially for younger entrepreneurs, to enhance bridging the conveyance of design? Another big topic, Amit. I'll call you and discuss this. That's what we are working on. And Professor Basavra says very thoughtful points from Professor Sachdev. And he also says embracing technology is already effective, but oops, sorry about that. Embracing technology is already effective, but it does not negate, as Bijoy mentioned, the other ways of working. Absolutely, sir. And your point is understood, Habib, sir. So. Okay, could we see the poll results? Sorry, I had to, okay, we've got, so people have taken to online meeting platforms, 94%, not surprising at all. Immersive tech for collaboration, that's a high percentage. I was not expecting any, I mean, barring a very few. So 22% have done that too. And yeah, 6% felt there was no need to change. So another day, another topic to burst that bubble, but not today. We'll move to the final segment, the future professional. And I'll start with 2 quotes I've been using a lot in Trezi Academy of late. One from an author, the book that was given to me as a first year student of architecture by one of my seniors. And this is a quote from Alvin Toffler, and it stayed with me for a while now, so Alvin Toffler, the author and futurist, suggests the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that's been something that has really been with us right through our initial idea for forming days with Trezi Academy. But one of the many webinars that I attended during the course of the lockdown, one of them was organized by the World Economic Forum, and I was privileged to hear Hadi Partovi, CEO of Code.org, and Hadi actually mentioned during the course of that webinar that 1.5 billion children are currently being prepared for jobs of the past. And it was like a punch in the gut, when I heard him say that. And I kind of, when he said that, I started kind of equating that to our profession as to, are we also stuck in the same space? And I'll take this as first point. First person I'll take this to is Habib sir. Habib sir, how do you view the statement from Hadi in the context of architectural curriculum in India? And again, I will not pose this to you as the president of Council of Architecture. I will pose this to you as Professor Habib Khan. So I'll take your views on that. So, in the context of architectural curriculum, are we preparing students for job of the past? Are we also kind of stuck, or are we stuck in a time rut ourselves? Are we evolving at a desired rate? Is the curriculum being refreshed in a manner that ensures that graduating students are up to speed with tools and techniques that are relevant to the times that they will be part of the practice?
I can add to that 24,000 students, architecture students, are being taught jobs of the past, not only past, antiquated jobs of the past. Because see, I mean, the idea is, I wouldn't agree more, because the idea is, what are we teaching? What is the way we're teaching architecture these days? How shall we teach architecture? Is this organized architectural education per se the right way to learn architecture? I mean, what is the appropriate way of learning architecture? Leave aside teaching, learning architecture. I mean, you're having boss behind you, and the organization of architectural education started with the institution behind you. And I think I agree with Vibhuti when she said that most of the buildings or architecture that is built shouldn't have been. And what have we achieved in the last 70 odd years, 40 odd years? And what is the quality of built environment that we are having in our country? What is the, is this what our curriculum or the way we learn architecture has produced? Is this what we are going to learn now, and what are we going to do henceforth by this learning? Is a question that we all academicians, practicing architects, and regulatory authority needs to think about it. I personally, if you ask me, feel that the architecture learning has to be turned upside down 360 degrees. This is not the way we should teach architecture. This is not the way we should regulate architecture. This is not the way we should govern the becoming of an architect. And I say it with experience. I say it with my own personal likes, dislikes, whatever. But the kind of built mass and the infrastructure that we're having in our country is not what it should be. And to a certain extent, our education system, our curriculum has been responsible for what we see today. Whether we use technology, artificial intelligence, or any other means is a totally different matter of discussion. But I think curriculum needs a total overall rehaul in terms of everything. Everything has to be upside down. Secondly, the issue why this is not happening is the policy makers, the decision makers, the administrators of academics are not in tune and sync with the aspirations and the desires of the people who are learning to become architects. So there's a big gap. We sometimes, maybe age limit, maybe certain kind of ego which tells us that we are better than you and we know more than you, restricts it and prevents it from doing this. But I think the policymakers and the administrators of academics need to understand the aspirations and the ethos of the younger generation who have come to learn architecture. And when this happens, I think the whole system will change for the better. But I think at the moment, what we are learning, how we're learning to become architects, is not what it should be. Thank
you, sir. Dr. Vibhuti, I'll bring you in here. And this is probably most pertinent amongst all the panelists that we have today to you as somebody who's in this day in, day out, as a part of your day-to-day role, what you have to give back to the students. So first and foremost, do you agree with the fact that what Professor Habib said, that 24,000 students are being prepared for jobs of the past? in the field of architecture? Sorry, you're on mute. Yeah.
Only if you take architecture as a means to finding a job, then yes, that statement would hold true. But you have to also see architecture as education from being different from architecture as a discipline and profession. So, I think there is no other, there is no other discipline or, which is actually gives a very, very holistic learning to any human being. I mean, to students, it's a bit of humanities, bit of science, and it's very creative. It makes you a better person. You're so aware of the built environment. It opens your brain. You can think critically about every decisions in your life. So it makes you a better citizen of the world. That there is no doubt about it. And architectural education, is one of the, I think, the only very, very holistic education in the creative field that gives you this very heightened, acute sense of where you live, who you are. And bear in mind, the students who come to us are in that age of 18 to 23, and they are going through so much already, so much, their hormones, they're exploring relationships, they're coming out of the home for the first time, they're experiencing freedom, they are testing their boundaries, how much you can get away with. And architecture as an education allows them to discover themselves. And it allows them to grow freely into that very healthily confident human being who is also sensitive to the environment. That is what architecture education does. And it's when you do undergraduation of a geographer, do you worry about a job? Do you say, I'm doing English honors, and by the way, is it going to give me a job? No, it's education. So I think somewhere what has happened is this kind of
But ma'am, that's a different case with professional courses, right? Sorry, I jumped in, but just to kind of pick on that point, if I join a professional course, I'm speaking on behalf of the students who might be here today, that if I pick up an educational course, a professional course for my education, whether I go into being into the medical field or architecture or study to be a lawyer, I do expect to come out and practice as a lawyer or an architect or a doctor, So I would not join the course of architecture to, heighten my sense of
sense
wisdom.
of being. No, but the thing is, that is a priceless contribution of the field of education. But of course, you can build a building. But what it does is, those kind of aspirations and ambitions have changed. It is no longer a scenario where people aspire that, okay, throughout their life they're going to build one house, have one car, have one marriage, have two children, and then have a retirement, and then they will pack off. That's not the aspirations of younger generation. They might have 5 jobs, they might have they might explore, they may retire in their 40s. Many people are, they've earned enough, they retire 40s, do another run. They might do a PhD when they're 70 years old. So and the whole idea of a family unit is changing. The whole idea of relationships is changing. So I mean, I think we have to appreciate these changes and the choices it offers, and the freedom it gives to people to explore their own selves. After all, this is a journey of self-exploration. Life is a journey of self-exploration. You only come to your life when you're about to retire. That. So it's a continuous journey of self-discovery, and of course, it also teaches you how to build. By the way, I mean, there is no doubt about that.
It better.
Of course. Of course, you can build a building, you can build, but do you want to build what you think? It also gives you a great sense of questioning, which no other discipline does. Because it is about intervention in the built environment. And look, we're paying such a huge price because we did it so badly. And and I think architectural education should be compulsory for everybody in this country or everybody in the world, because we should have a foundation architecture course for all citizens of the country, so that they are sensitive to environment, they are creative, they self-discover, because these are the things that make you a better human being, I think.
I'll bring in Bijoy to finish this one. Bijoy, you interact a lot with students of architecture. You lead a practice where a lot of students want to be a part of. So what are your views here? And again, it doesn't need to necessarily go and question the architectural curriculum, but again, just the thought that are students being sent out into the profession by architecture schools prepared for jobs that may not exist now?
Yes, I mean, the simple answer is yes. But I think the thing that both Habib sir and Dr. Vibhuti have raised are both really, really important to consider. On the one hand, the architectural education is, like Dr. Vibhuti says, a way to discover yourself. And in fact, practicing as an architect in the most sort of hallowed way one considers it is a discovery of oneself, one's own sort of way in which you exist in the world, the way you see, yourself in relationship with other people. All of that, I mean, as you grow older, it's a really sort of wonderful thing that comes to bear. I'm hoping I get there someday when I have that realization, but architecture sets you up in that pursuit. It sort of gives you the beginnings of that. The threat of that is what Habib sir has said. So this idea that each of us is a special individual, each of us has a special place in the world, each of us has a valid voice in which to speak, has inherent in it a threat of this thing called postmodernist relativism, that everybody has got a voice, there is no hierarchy, everybody's equal. This is the ideal of a democracy, right? Everybody's got a voice, etc. The challenge with that is that when we see certain kinds of public works or we're operating in the world, a value system is somehow dissipating, that we don't, and this is what Professor Vibhuti already said, that you see a lot of crap being built and everybody has justification for it. My client didn't allow me to do it, or there was no time, the budget was screwed up. What an architectural education in an ideal world really sets you up is A, to discover yourself, but B, is to develop a very, very sort of solid set of values in the way in which you operate in the world. What am I willing to do? How am I going to negotiate that? How do I work with other people? What are the larger values as an architect, as a professional, as a human being one should have? And the reason why we're not seeing more of that in professional practice is because the schools are geared towards focusing on trying to get them to develop skills, which are important, but they somehow leave out what is, of core importance to education. And how does that happen? I mean, how do you train someone to be a poet, or how do you train someone to be an artist? How do you train? It's difficult to do, right? I mean, you can light the match and then set them off and then hope that it sort of is going to work out. But it's a tough, I mean, I don't know what the council will do or any one of us can do. I mean, all of us have had that one amazing teacher who changed life for us, who suddenly showed us something that sort of opened everything up for us. How do you institute that? I don't have the answer. I'm just saying, these are the challenges. You get bad products because it's tough to produce a great artist. It's tough to produce a great architect. It's tough to produce a great poet. These are challenges that I don't know how you solve, but I mean, that's the core concern. How do you educate someone to have both a real sense of oneself, but also one's position in the world? I just have one other thing to say with regards to the curriculum. On the one hand is this idea that, we have and I want to bring, this idea of the central vista a little bit, just to talk about the role that architects have played in trying to evaluate and sort of gauge what this project is about. And the reason why there hasn't been, substantial sort of review and sort of, reflection on what this project means shows this, lack in education where people are engaged with the world in a way that is really sort of forceful and active. And so so that's one example. The second thing that I wanted to say is that theory and history, which are the core of our curriculum as architectural, as education, both of these have sort of become really peripheral to the way things are taught in in colleges. And so I would say that maybe that's one place to focus, that somehow that's brought to bear. So precedent, what happened before, what are the factors that make something, work? This becomes the core of architectural education. And the last thing that I want to say is, Ancept is doing this, which, I have a big problem with, but this idea of unit system, that you would then, subcontract the studios to practicing professionals from wherever, offer them up to the students, and whoever gets the maximum number of, signups gets to do the studio. I think architectural schools have to have a much more comprehensive idea of what the curriculum is offering for the student. What this subcontracting does is it dilutes that sort of
commoditizes the process of education.
What are we trying to do in the school here? How are we building that, curriculum? And it gives them this credence for this postmodernism, this relativism that everybody can do everything is valid, and that's a problem. Sorry to be rambling here. Thank you.
No, I think we saved the best for last, Bijoy. Thanks so much for picking that up, because some of the points that you picked up are what the current lot should be very concerned about as well. So it is not about just somebody prescribing and students subscribing. It's about, I think, the essence of the arguments that you and Dr. Vibhuti provided is the fact that we are trained to inherently question a lot of things around us and interact with those the environment in a manner that we question it, and we come up with a solution that is optimal and progressive and in tunes with the times. But if we are going to commoditize the process of education, I do not know what sort of a quality are we going to produce. So it's only going to be about more buildings that we are not going to be proud of. I mean, I think a good 20% of the time that we spent today, we spoke about how buildings that have come up should have not been there in the first place, and we are only going to create more of that. So thanks so much for picking that up. I mean, it was not rambling at all. It was educational. It was informative. And I hope the students and even the academicians who have attended the session today have taken something from that. So, I mean, we're coming to the end of this. There are a lot of views coming up in the chat window. We will pick that up. But I think what we'll do is we'll just hear the last 2 minutes views from each one of our panelists, and then we'll come to the Q&A and the discussions that are going on in the chat window. But if, as closing remarks from each one of you, starting with Dr. Vibhuti, then Bijoy and Professor Habib, I mean, COVID-19 has changed the world. Should the architectural education system in India respond to these changes too? And now, just 2 minutes each, and we can go on to the main chat window then.
Yes, I think COVID has changed the world. It has given us the much needed pause. And my concern and anxiety is I hope we don't forget what we've learned. Because once we reopen, I hope we don't then rush out to our old, so-called normal ways. We have to explore a different way of living, a different sensitivity, a different sensibility that will take us to a much more evolved living. That is what is urgently required in the world. And I hope we don't forget what we went through and what can happen to us and how powerful the environment and nature is. And we should stop fighting it and learn to live with it humbly. That is my hope.
Sure. Thanks, Bijoy.
Well, just to reiterate what I said earlier about the COVID and its lessons, is just for us to build our own awareness of what it takes to make the things that we do, to build the buildings that we build, and all of the fancy designs that we come up with, to just be cognizant of what those larger teams are doing, how they get about their day, and even that basic awareness, even if you're not able to change anything, but just to be aware of the huge discrepancies that exist within the sort of construction industry. This pandemic has brought that to bear with me, to me. Thank you.
Deep, sir.
See, I used to say always that pandemic has not broken our world, but has shown a broken world to us. And that we were traveling on a highway with a lot of speed, and then there was a traffic signal, and we took a pause, and we will all introspect and not trample the earth, not do injustice to our fellow citizens, and so on, idealistic talk. But I see now that we are opening up and lockdowns are opening up, we have really not learned anything. We were in a cage, raging bull, and as soon as that cage door is open, we are just back to our own normal self, plundering more and more and more, and creating more kind of atrocities. But I hope that better sense prevails, and we really look at the way we were leading our lives, and the lives that can improve the quality of life of our fellow citizens, how we can do that and how we can improve, and what we can do to have a legacy which is inheritable for our future generations. We need to take a pause and look at it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, everybody. We are opening up the chat window, guys, and we'll take your views before we say goodbye. So I'll start again with Professor Vasavda. He addresses this to you, Habib sir. It says, Professor Khan, wonderful point of view indeed, and very honest. But as president of COA, what would you suggest as remedial for such a situation, as council is a regulatory authority? What would you suggest to improve the situation?
Yeah, a quick answer to that would be, we need to break the invisible divide and the wall that exists between the practicing architects and the academicians, bring them on one platform, and have a synthesis of, what the profession expects and what the academia delivers. And to do that, we are doing a lot of things at the council, and very soon you will be apprised of developments happening in the professional front and the academic front. But we need to really look into, we just have the minimum standards of architectural education regulation 2020 notified after 38 years. But I think it's time to notify it again next year, incorporating all that has changed in the last year. And we should work on that, and we should work together. But this divide, invisible divide between profession and academics have to go, and be working towards that, how to bridge the gap and how to bring them on one platform.
Thank you, sir. So Sumit Sajdev, hi Sumit. Sumit says that as a product manufacturer, he cannot comment on the use of advanced tech in education, but he feels that we are now ready to adopt this technology simply because companies like his could be better represented and made more available. This product probably made more available. So yes, absolutely. I think one thing, Sumit, that happens is the world is talking about this being the decade of the digital, and the world needs digitization of some of the wasteful processes that we adopt, physical mock-ups in your case, So I think working with digital twins creates product awareness, and the ability gives the architects the abilities to bring in your products in their designs earlier. So yes, absolutely. I think it's something that is going to be the way forward. Professor Vasavda says that unfortunately such forum is one way, but why can't COA organize a series of seminars on this issue? Professor,
I think you should be watching COA social dialogue, COA social book reads, and now we're going to have a couple of roundtable sessions, and then we're going to have interactive sessions. So very soon, by March, you will be having all this rolled out. So I think you can keep a watch on the COA social Facebook page and the WhatsApp social media post. You won't be disappointed.
Amit says choosing a profession and how you deal with it is something very respective. I agree with Dr. Vibhuti, as an architect designs spaces because they deal with people in spaces, maybe from prisons to resorts. It does involve a lot of psychology and understanding of the issue. And I think that's what Dr. Vibhuti mentioned. And any point you would like to make on this post, Dr. Vibhuti? Sorry, you're on mute again.
Yeah, I think it is a very human-based, people-based profession. So, I mean, all three of them, architecture, planning, and design, have people at the core of it. And it's all about people. So human psychology is important, but I think collective thinking, culture, sensitivity, sensibility, equity, those are things that we need to be very, very conscious and mindful of. And through every decision, we have to consider, whether we are disturbing someone, whether we are, if we are adding something, who are we subtracting it from? Because all these equations play out in a in a fantastically weird way if we're not mindful of them. So yeah, I mean, I think people are at the heart of this profession.
Nikhil comes in and stirs things up a bit. He says, agreed that architecture is one of the best discipline to self-discover, and the less it is seen from commercial angle, the more we can keep its sanctity. But are we adapting to newer needs to ensure better people are not designing more crappy buildings? As all panelists agree that most of the buildings are crap. uh, I do not know. I mean, Bijoy, you want to take that one?
I'll take the questions for the professional. The professional.
No, I mean, see, I mean, whether the building is crap or not, whether it is good, appropriate or not, is a question which the society actually needs to answer. And the awareness of architecture in society has to grow. Like Vibhuti said, it has to be a foundation course for all, probably at primary, secondary level or whatever. Unless the awareness in the society increases, architects or architectural profession can't do anything actually.
True.
So it's a very subjective thing. To me, it may be crap. To someone else, it may be gold. So it's a very subjective debate that we can all. But I mean, there are certain parameters that we all arrive at saying that these are, parameters on which you can judge a good building or a bad building. So I mean, I think it will need an independent session of discussion. What is good, what is bad.
But I mean, I do think that profession like architecture and design, in especially at least in the 80s, we were all activists in our studios. We used to get disturbed by a bad building. Nobody gets disturbed by a bad building anymore. We used to say, how dare this person build such an ugly piece in our landscape? Now, these things, okay, this is another one. So we have to get that activism back into our studio, and higher education especially is very, very a powerful space, and we can intervene and do so many things that people in practice can't. And the student body is very strong, and I would really, I mean, it's such a powerful force. The whole student body, they can change cities, they can change environments, and I think. We need to kind of work on that bit more proactively, I guess.
Yeah, Hassan Fatih, if you recall, said every ugly building is an insult to the passerby. It says, "This is your worth, mister." So.
There's also a lovely essay by David Chipperfield, for the Venice Biennale called Common Ground.
Right.
In that he relates to he relates something that's very similar to what Dr. Vibhuti said, that the architect does two things, always. He's the antagonist, but he's also the service provider. So, I mean, this idea of a crappy building, one must, and this is something that we don't learn in school, how do you negotiate? How do you come to the table with, with someone else? How do you collaborate really? And if you don't have both these things, you're not going to get anything of value made. I mean, our work is it's not the creative, I'm not Picasso or Giotto or someone, who's drawing cannons with square wheels. I have to make the damn thing move, Right. But I can't say that that's the futility of war, and that's why the cannon has square wheels. So we have to sort of negotiate. We have to work with our clients, with our consultants, with the people at the office to come to something meaningful. And there's also the wonderful quote that Glenn Murcutt always talks about. He says, this is Jose Coderc, the Spanish architect. He says, I tell my students that they must put into their work first effort, second love, and finally suffering. And if the result is not wonderful, the work will at least show care and dedication. So, we can't always say that it's going to be amazing, but you got to put in that, time into it. And that's something that has to happen in college and as a professional.
Thanks so much for all the views to everyone. I will end with this view that Professor Basavra has put on the chat window, and I'll end this session with this. We are already a minute over time. Professor Basavra said, discipline of architecture is basically self-acquired. So the science part is taught. The humanities are also exposed through experiential learning. When you consider as university education, it is where the trouble begins. The learning for an architect never ends. It's evolutionary. Absolutely, sir. And there are a lot of other views there, some congratulatory. Thank you so much, everybody, for the kind words. Really appreciate it. And I will have to end this now. We will have more of these sessions happening. But thanks so much to all the panelists. Really humbled by all the learnings and all the views that were shared today. Thank you so much for sparing the time. I really do hope that the students of architecture have had some stirring of thought that has happened. That is really the purpose of a session of this nature. And again, on that note, I'd like to end this session. Once again, thank you, everybody, and see you all very soon in the next sessions.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Gautam, do send the chat stuff to us. It'd be nice.
Yeah. I'm just saving that before I leave the meeting so that we do not miss it. Dishank, just copy everything in a Google Doc and share with everybody, please.
It'd be nice to see that. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay, sure.
Bye.
Thanks for today, Bijoy. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in Bangalore sometime.
Hopefully soon, yeah.
Okay. So I'm copying everything now. Okay, so I have all the chat with me.
Yeah, just save it on a Google Doc and we'll share it with everybody who attended and everybody who, all the panelists as well, please.